So men will now be able to take their wives' surnames should they wish to do so. It's after the Constitutional Court today confirmed a judgment that was Thursday, 11th of September. This is written very technically. So today, the Constitutional Court basically confirmed a judgment by a lower court that men, should they want to, will be allowed to take the surnames of their wives. This will then require a formal change to a portion of the Births and Deaths Registration Act, which was found to have been unconstitutional. The court says it unfairly discriminates on the basis of gender by failing to afford men the right to assume the woman's surname after marriage. It's after the applicants, two married couples, Jana, Jordaan and Henry van der Merwe, as well as Jess, Donnelly-Bornman and Andreas, Nicolas went to the Apex Court in March for a confirmation of invalidity against the said section. SABC News senior reporter Canny Maphanga has more for you.
The Constitutional Court has undone the practice of women being expected to assume their husband's surname as the family name, describing it as largely a colonial import rooted in patriarchal norms.
In the case of men, they are deprived of the ability to assume their wife's surname if they so wish. In the case of women, the effects of the scheme are far more insidious. It is not merely so that they are deprived of the right to have their surnames serve as the family surname where their husbands wish to take that surname. It also reinforces patriarchal gender norms which prescribe how women may express their identity, and it makes this expression relational to their husband as a governmental and cultural default.
The Constitutional Court further found that the extent and impact of the discrimination does not stop there.
The impact on women is also far-reaching. The symbolic consequence is that women's identities are subsumed into their husbands' families after marriage. This has the inevitable upshot of entrenching the notion that the husband is the head of the household. This practice also perpetuates the historical philosophy that women are not equal to men and become akin to minors upon marriage.
As a result, the Apex Court confirmed that Section 26, subsection 1A to C of the Births and Deaths Registration Act is unconstitutional insofar as it unfairly discriminates on the basis of gender by failing to afford men the right to assume the surname of women after marriage.
The declaration of invalidity is suspended for a period of 24 months to enable Parliament to remedy the defects by either amending the existing legislation or passing new legislation.
Canny Maphanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
For more on this, let's bring in Professor Sihawukele Ngubane, cultural expert and professor of African languages at UKZN, that's the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Good to have your time this evening, Professor. Do you see the decision confirmed by the Constitutional Court this morning as a game changer, especially in a setting of perhaps a more cultural take on wedded bliss, so to speak?
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I think for some people it is a game changer, but for most African people, it is something that I feel that the Constitutional Court has reframed the cultural heritage in the era where we are working very hard to safeguard our customs and traditions, which is supported by the Constitution. Because if we consider diversity in our country, we have diverse beliefs on what marriage is constituted. And I think this ruling will also affect the family structure, because for most African people, they believe that the male lineage is the one that should continue. That is why we have different clans that carry those surnames. So for a man to take the surname of the wife, it is something that we will have to debate and have more dialogue to take it through, because it is going to cause cultural tensions, mainly among people in the rural areas, is something that is unheard of.
How do you make that argument, though, Professor, given that ultimately what the court has done here is not say they are forcing or men should be forced to take the last name of their wives. It is basically, all it's saying is if you want to, do it if you wish. So does that not render that argument moot because it's not compulsory for people to do this?
You are right. I had the ruling very clearly that if you so wish. So I think that's why I said it's a breakthrough, it's a game changer for some people who may wish to do so. But in the cultural heritage, it is something that is against our beliefs and tradition, because I think there must be an alignment for the constitutional principles with the traditional practices, because we need to strike a balance between tradition and the constitutional principles. It must be aligned.
So the court also then said that basically the law that had governed the issue around surnames in marriage at this point was basically a colonial import. And I wonder if in the studies of African history and previous lineages, there is proof that it's always been compulsory for women to leave their last name behind and take the name of the man. For instance, if you want to continue your husband's lineage, you can do that, right, through bearing children without the wife necessarily having to take the husband's last name, no?
Yeah, in fact, it is a different scenario amongst the African people because of the ancestral connection. When you get married, there are rituals like lobola. And if you undertake those rituals, it means you are bound that you take the surname of the husband. And also, you don't deprive a woman from her maiden surname, because we bring the two surnames together. If you are from Dlamini, you must Dlamini for the rest of your life. And some communities even extend that a wife can even use her father's name for the sake of identity. So if you are Dlamini, you will be Dlamini Ngubane. So you still carry your maiden surname. So that is why we feel that this is going to cause havoc for those people who will want to adapt to this new ruling. But for those who is their choice, then it's fine, well and good.
And before I ask you my last question, Prof, we're having this conversation, and I think it's worth stating that there is a caveat that culture is not homogenous across all South African society, right? But I'm wondering then, in more general terms, if, let's say, a couple that aligns itself with the generally accepted, shall we say, traditional way of doing things, where the husband is required to send a letter asking to basically begin the process to marry a woman, and then lobola follows, etc. Would that couple opting, for instance, to have the husband also take the wife's last name, if they so wish, would it alter in any way the traditional process up until the point of marriage? You mentioned, for example, observations around ancestors, etc. Would that require perhaps the slaughtering of a beast, etc., or something different?
Yes, when it comes to a push, when a couple decides that, I think with the ancestors, it is negotiable. They can conduct some rituals to change the status quo, but it is undesirable.
How so?
For most African people. For most African people.
Would it be a complication that can be overcome?
I don't think so, Tembegile, but we must not be resistant to change. I think we are living in a very different environment now, where anything happens for a reason or another. But we always say culture is dynamic. But the fact of the matter is that we must not reframe the cultural heritage for the benefit of the Constitution.
Professor Sihawukele Ngubane, cultural expert and professor of African languages at UKZN. Always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the SABC. Coming up next is Mawande Mateza. Mawande, are you taking your wife's surname? Well, wife-to-be. I don't know if you've got one already.